Oh boy, I don't know if you heard, but yesterday on Twitter, believe it or not, Galactus was trending. And I very well understand that Galactus is a polarizing card. We're going to talk about it because a lot of people are calling for nerfs. A lot of people, including myself to a certain degree, don't really see Galactus as a big deal, even though I don't enjoy playing him, but I don't know if he should be nerfed or not. Now, let's take a look at a couple of the posts that actually got Galactus to be trending. I'm not kidding. Galactus was actually trending on Twitter. Nade Shot. I actually did not know that Nade Shot played Marvel Snap, but this guy's got like almost 3 million followers on Twitter and millions of followers throughout the internet. This guy's monstrous. I had no idea that he played Marvel Snap at all. He tweeted out, Galactus continues to be the worst card in Marvel Snap, takes all the fun out of this incredible game. I know there are counters, and we're going to talk about the counters, so stay tuned. Towards the end of the video, there's a lot of counters to Galactus, but I think there's some unorthodox ones too that we're going to talk about. But I think I've got like 20 counters that we can talk about. We'll get to them. But every single time it's played and you're using a deck without counters or didn't draw counters earlier, you just wasted your miniature life. Kind of like Kang. I actually feel this way about Kang, but that's another story. We don't want to muddle two different cards in the same conversation. So this was on Twitter yesterday, and then there was another argument, which I'm a little bit more inclined to agree with this, but there's some things that people are not accounting for. And there are situations that I think where people need to be aware of, that people are really frustrated with the Galactus. I don't think this answers the entire question. I'm going to say something controversial. I don't think Galactus needs to be changed. Galactus decks are so obviously and easily counterable. If you can't counter, retreat for one cube and move on to the next match. And I agree with this. And it's interesting. Nina has, maybe 10,000 ish, I'm guessing, followers. I'd have to look. I got 1,000 hearts, where, somebody with 2.9 million, gets 300 likes on his counterpoint. So I think most people in the community are in favor of this idea. Now, I just want to talk about why I am not particularly concerned about Galactus. But before I talk about that, one of the most annoying, brain dead games one can play is against a Galactus player. And I want to acknowledge that it's annoying, somewhat unfun, and very lame, right? Turn 1, nothing played. Turn 2, nothing played. Turn 3, wave. Turn 4, Galactus. Turn 5, Spider-Man. His Marvel emoji. I don't think anybody's a fan of that. So I don't want to dismiss the idea that it's unfun and kind of brain dead and kind of like but it's always been this way, right? It's been this way for a long time. Now, so I think that is the problem with Galactus, is it just feels like it's not very creative. It's kind of boring. But I want to tell you a couple things about Galactus from the statistics. And I'm going to compare two cards. One card gets virtually no complaints, and Galactus gets a lot of complaints. And those two cards are going to be Ultron and Galactus. So I've got data right here. And excuse me, but basically, Galactus has an 11% play rate, and Ultron has a 9% play rate. So very similar play rates. Both, Patriot is popular right now. Again, like I said, not a lot of people are complaining about Ultron. A lot of people are complaining about Galactus. This is the win rate and cube rate of those decks that contain those cards. 49% versus almost 55%. A 0.1 cube rate, 0.27 rate of decks that contain either Galactus or Ultron. We're going to move a little bit over. Right here is when the card is drawn. So you can see that the win rate goes up a little bit on Galactus decks, and then they have similar cube rates. And then we have on the final category is win played. And you can see that the statistics for Ultron and Galactus are nearly identical. So what I'm getting at here is it's not that Galactus is necessarily effective. It's that he's annoying and you don't get to play your deck. It's probably for the same reason that a lot of people hate certain locations. I mean, certain locations restrict gameplay and it's just generally unfun. Now, what nobody is talking about is this. And I think that myself have this experience as well. And I largely I say, I don't see what the big deal is with Galactus. They don't get good cube rates. They can have their cube, or I steal a lot of cubes from them. I mean, this right here, there's a quote here from Regis says a lot right here. One of those who get the most frustrated by Galactus or location variants aren't snapping much. If you're snapping a lot, your average cube rates in game are high. A 1 cube loss to bad variance feels minor. If you don't snap much, a 1 cube loss to variance feels big. And then Ordinary Harry said something similar. A trick against those pesky Galactus decks, make having the answer more valuable than not having it. Simply leave for 1 when they snap you. If you don't have an answer to it, and if you do, snap back and take 4. For me, the most fun that I have in this game is stealing cubes from a Galactus player. I love it. That is actually fun to me. I love it. But this is what nobody's talking about. And this is what I kind of know. And largely my opinions were based off of this. Galactus decks suck. Only when people are playing from levels 90 to 99 and full collection levels. In the games that I play, it's not hard to... I don't see what the big deal is. The win rates on these decks are trash when people are playing in sweaty leagues, right? Full collection levels, level 90-99. The most popular deck has a 0.8. That's not good. 50% win rate. The second most popular, 0.9, not good. 48% win rate. Negative cube rate. I mean, not good. We've got some down here that are a little better, right? But on the whole, this is a C tier deck. However, this is not what most people are experiencing. What most people are experiencing is this. Player rank 40 to 69, inside of pool 3. Galactus is actually fairly oppressive at that part of the game. And I'm not sure why that is, but I have a very, narrow view of Galactus, is that the deck is garbage and it's easy to counter. But that doesn't show the whole picture. I think largely there are a large number of players that are playing against Galactus and they're getting destroyed and they hate the card. They delete the game. They don't play Snap anymore because it's not fun to lose against Galactus. And I don't know if that's healthy for the game. So what I wanted to talk about and suggest is that there are a lot of counters, and I just want to make people aware of those counters, and also this idea of snapping and retreating, and just retreating and letting them take 1 cube is not that big of a deal. And like Ordinary Harry says, like if they snap, you probably should retreat unless you've got a counter. You snap back and try to get 4, right? If you have a counter to it, because I think if everybody, I think everybody should play a Galactus deck. Like, I think everybody should play Galactus decks. And I think what you will find if you have not played a Galactus deck is that it is temperamental, inconsistent, fragile, and things fall apart pretty easily. And it doesn't always work because that's the reality of the deck. It's kind of an inconsistent deck. And you have to play it and understand it. And there's a learning curve to the deck, but it's not like this auto win deck. And so I think you have to play it to understand that. And so we're going to talk about it. Let's talk about the counters for Galactus. And There are a ton. In fact, I was just going to put, 12. And then I was talking with people on chat and we found another almost 20 counters to Galactus. Some of these are better than others, but a lot of these are generic cards that are played in a lot of decks. So, you can identify if you're playing a Galactus player, if they're playing Electro, Wave, Daredevil, Yondu. It's pretty obvious what they're trying to do, and you need to be focusing on the lane that is not occupied. The main way to counter Galactus is to put a card in that lane so it doesn't go off. And so there's a couple cards that do that, or a couple cards that prevent it. And some of these ideas that I'm going to talk about, some are better than others. Some of them are super situational. Some of them don't always work all the time, but we'll just talk about it. So Titania, the idea there is when you have priority, you play Titania, and then you play another card. It sends Titania over to the other side, and then their Galactus plan is foiled. Okay. Doesn't always work. It doesn't work, let's say, in a situation where they play Wave, but it's an option. Goose. You just basically, if you place Goose into a lane, let's say they play Yondu in turn 1 into the left lane. Well, and you think, well, this is probably a Galactus deck. Well, you want to put that Goose in one of the other 2 lanes, either lane 2 or lane 3, and see how it goes. It's because basically they won't be able to play Galactus in that lane. Viper, you could send over a card. You got to have priority, but trying to get all 3 lanes clogged is very useful. Viper is can send over a hood, maybe a rock, or if you're really cute, maybe a sentry, the demon or whatever. But anyways, filling that lane with like a card. Green Goblin. Yeah, just send a card over to that lane, right? Fantastic. Cosmo. If you have priority and you know what lane they're going to play Galactus, it just doesn't work. Debris is probably one of the most effective cards to counter Galactus because it puts a rock in 2 locations. So if they play, let's say, Yondu turn 1 in the left lane, well, you play Debris in the left lane. That's going to put rocks on the 2 lanes. A lot of this is obvious, but Juggernaut, if you play Galactus, you have to have priority for this to work. But if you play Juggernaut in the same lane that they're playing Galactus, and it bounces the Galactus into their other lane, and this doesn't always work, especially if they. I mean, this is the reason why these Galactus decks play Doc Ock, is they're trying to get all these counters wiped out of your hand. So, like I said, you just have to retreat. Polaris, this is probably one of my favorite. You're able to pull over, let's say, their Cloak or their Daredevil into the lane that they're trying to play Galactus, right? It's kind of a fun thing to do. Hobgoblin works the same as Green Goblin. Professor X just locks down that lane, and you've got 3 power, and they've got 2 power. Arrow, suck the Galactus into the lane that they have their Yondu or whatever, right? Magneto, this works if they have Wave. You can pull their Electro over into the lane that they're trying to play Galactus. Fantastic. I mean, these are not like obscure cards. There's a ton of them. And then lastly, we've got Rogue for countering Null. That's not super effective, but basically if you don't have priority and you think they're going to play Null, you could steal the Null ability. Fantastic. Super Scroll. I actually won a match with Super Scroll the other day. I realized that they hadn't played enough cards. Not enough cards had been destroyed for them to play Death and Null at the same time. So I played Super Scroll and basically copied their Null and won the game. Shang-Chi, if typically a Galactus player does not want priority, but if you do not have priority and they play a monstrous Death and a monstrous Null, Shang-Chi can win the game. Same thing, turn 5 Spider-Man. If you know they're going to play Galactus, play Spider-Man into that lane. They can't play anything on turn 5. They can't play anything on turn 6. Fantastic. Enchantress, situational, I'm sure, but it's possible that you could wipe out a Null. Leech. Leech. Leech was a lot more effective before than he is now. But this is still a thing and stopping Clowner. I don't know if I recommend that. And then there's also, lastly, Leader can be used. So I think the main thing about Galactus is that he's being played too much right now. and that's why people are upset. 11% is kind of high. But I just want to call to people's attention that this is a little bit different than Shuri. Shuri numbers were a lot higher, almost double in a lot of these categories, you know, with the rates of play, how many cubes she got. Her win percentage was like almost 60%. So I'm not sure that Galactus is as effective as people realize. And I do recommend that people play Galactus just to get an understanding of how it works. That way, it's not this big mystery of how you lost. And what I'm hoping happens is that play rates for Galactus go down naturally by giving out information on how to counter it and how to work around it. And people actually will naturally stop playing Galactus as much when people start playing the counters, because I think that's the problem, because nobody's complaining about Kang right now. Kang's kind of an annoying card to play against, but Kang's not played that much, right? It wastes time. So I hope that people will start understanding how Galactus works, play more of the counters. That way, in this part of the game, which I was talking about in the middle, you know, where they are being highly effective and to a certain degree oppressive. I mean, these are like Shuri type numbers right here. Then the Galactus players will just go away. That's my hope anyways. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I don't expect everybody to have the same opinion as mine. I know there's a lot of people that just want Galactus deleted from the game. I think Galactus, you know, Wave Galactus Spider-Man is kind of lame, but it is what it is. Let me know what you think in the comment section. As always, thanks for watching. Keep it going. Bye for now.